This week on The Watchman, it's the 50-year anniversary of Israel's miraculous victory in the Six-Day War, and we're in the biblical heartland of Judea to see how one Jewish community is thriving in the land of their forefathers.
We're promised in the book of Ruth that, please God, you shall be prosper in Efrat. This is where our prosperity is.
Plus, we get the inside story of how God is bringing his people back to Israel. It's the ingathering of the exiles. This week on The Watchman, only with Christians United for Israel and only on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman. This month marks the 50th anniversary of Israel's miraculous victory over the combined forces of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan in the Six-Day War. During that conflict, Israel reclaimed its ancient capital of Jerusalem, an historic event that was 2,000 years in the making. Israel also captured the Sinai Peninsula, which it eventually gave back to Egypt as part of a landmark peace deal, and the Golan Heights, an important strategic area along the border with Syria. Then there is the ancient biblical heartland of Judea and Samaria, also known by many as the West Bank. Now, these are areas that you've read about in your Bible and where it's estimated that close to 400,000 Jews live today. We're heading there this week to visit one of those Jewish communities, Efrat. It's located in Judea, just a little over 7 miles south of Jerusalem. We met up with the mayor of Efrat, Oded Ravivi, who shared some of the exciting things happening in Efrat and how his community plays a vital role in Israel's security. Mayor Ravivi is also the chief foreign envoy for the Yesha Council, which is the umbrella organization representing the Israeli communities of Judea and Samaria. Take a look. Well, Mayor, thanks so much for having us in Efrat. What a view here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and it's great to be here, and some great things are happening in Efrat. Tell us what's going on here.
On our right-hand side, you can see, in a way, the past, what has happened in Efrat for the first 25 years. And on this side of us, you can see the new development taking place. In Efrat today, we have 10,000 residents, and we're in the process of building another 1,100 new units to host another 6,000 people who are moving in literally these days.
So this is a very large area, 16,000 people, Mayor. Now, Efrat, tell us a little bit about the history. You've been here for a while.
The story starts way back in the Bible when our mother Rachel gives birth to Benjamin, and she passes away whilst giving birth to Benjamin, and she's buried on the way to Bethlehem on the route which is called Ephrata, which according to our belief, this is where it happened. And Efrat is mentioned once again in the Bible when we have two youngsters, Ruth and Boaz, falling in love, playing their love story in the outskirts of Bethlehem, which is just behind that hill. And out of that love story becomes a marriage where God promises us that the King of Israel will be born out of that love story. So it's all happening here, and when we come back in 1983, it's only to relive the dream of Ruth and Boaz that were promised in the book of Ruth, that, please God, you shall be prosper in Efrat. This is where our prosperity is.
Yeah, you know, Mayor, this is the biblical heartland where we're standing right now. A good chunk of the Bible happened here in this area. I'm sure that's a draw for people to come live here, to be a part of the biblical heartland. What are some of the other reasons that Israelis come to Efrat to live?
The quality of air, the quality of life, the view, the nature, the surrounding. Everything that you see around you is what draws people to come and live here. It's the past, it's the history, it's the Bible, but it's also the quality of life that is surrounding us here today. The units here that they were sold, the contractors came to me and they said, you know, something miraculous is happening. We're selling units by the dozens without investing a cent in advertising, and they couldn't believe it. And the demand is so big that even when I tell you that we're building here 1,100 new units, they were all bought on paper with completion time in 5 years. And that's what brings people here. The quality, the view, the history, and a combination of all these three together.
I think one of the other interesting things, Mayor, of what you're doing here in Efrat is you live near Palestinian communities as well, and you guys have done a lot of outreach with the local Palestinian communities. Tell us a bit about that as well.
The fact that we live so close to the Palestinians, in my respect, is a role model as to how you can create coexistence in this, what, you know, some of those people who have never been here call conflict zone, disputed territories. They haven't seen the reality. They haven't seen the fact that just here between us and these houses, there are fields which are owned by private Arabs who come and maintain their land on a daily basis. They're not disturbed, and they're not disputing that this land belongs to us, and we can live one alongside the other. We can build one alongside the other, and that's basically what we're trying to convey to people who come here. So whoever sees this show and wants to come and see the reality in his own eyes is more than welcome to connect us.
You know, it's interesting, some of those Arabs caught heat too from their fellow Arabs for meeting with the people in Efrat, but you guys continue to reach out and have that strong relationship with everyone surrounding, Jew and Arab alike. It seems that some at the UN, in Europe, etc., believe that communities like Efrat are the problem, more so even than Hamas and Iran. They seem to lay the problems in the Middle East at the feet of places like Efrat. How do you respond to that, and how do you make that feel? I know you meet with some of these delegations from time to time, whether it's the EU, I'm sure you've met with some UN representatives. What's the message you give to them?
So I even had the opportunity of meeting John Kerry, and I saw very quickly where we disagree. The mere fact that the American ambassador is not allowed to come and see the reality here puts him in a position that he doesn't really understand the reality here. And when I have delegations coming over and I introduce them to my Palestinian neighbors, and these Palestinian neighbors say that they're for peace, they're for coexistence, some of them are so brave that they're willing to say that they prefer to be part of Israel than part of Palestine. It's merely because they know exactly what type of regime is governing them. Corrupt, not reliable, who doesn't care about their citizens. Now when you come and see the fact that in Efrat there are 10,000 people today, every single day I've got 1,000 Palestinians coming and working in Efrat. When you go and ask those Palestinians what is their dream, they would say to you to have a peaceful relationship, that we know that we can go to work in the morning, come back home with enough money in our pockets to supply for our families. There are 1,000 families being supported by building this settlement.
Arab families.
Arab families. And when you understand that, and you understand that there's a whole ecosystem here, which is based on the relationship with our neighbors, with an understanding that the settlements are not the obstacle for peace, but they can be the ones who can promote peace, because we can provide working places. When you go to the industrial areas, and you see Palestinian workers, and then you hear that there's a BDS organization calling to boycott that specific factory. What's the outcome? The factory is afraid, it closes down. Who are the first ones to suffer? Those poor Palestinians. John Kerry doesn't really take into account those private individuals who are seeking enough earning to supply for their families.
Well, 10,000 people now, Mayor, pretty soon 16,000 residents of Efrat. I guess the message is you're here to stay.
We're here to stay, and we understand that also the Arabs around are here to stay. And if we've got a message to convey, is that yes, we can get along with one another as long as other people don't come and disturb and rock the boat. And leave it to us to find out how we can live one alongside the other, and the future will be much better.
Mayor, thank you so much. From the biblical heartland. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Come again.
Excellent. We will. Thanks again to Mayor Ravivi for joining us and sharing some of the exciting things happening in Efrat. Well, up next, we're joined by the founding chief rabbi of Efrat, who describes what drew him to the biblical heartland. It's the Watchman. It's Christians United for Israel, only right here on TBN. Don't move.
An exciting new day has dawned for Christians United for Israel. After more than 10 years on the front lines fighting for Israel, now we have allies in the White House. Guided by his Christian faith, Vice President Pence has been a lifelong supporter of Israel. This support was intensified after his trip to Israel with CUFI, when he was the governor of Indiana. And now, we are excited to announce that Vice President Mike Pence will be our keynote speaker at this year's CUFI Washington, D.C. Summit. Don't miss this historic event. You can register right now for only $75 using the special discount code Watchman. We have operators waiting to receive your calls at 210-477-4714. Or you can register online at www.kufi.org/summit. We hope you join us with Pastor Hagee and Vice President Mike Pence at the Kufi Summit.
And welcome back. For 20 years, Rabbi Shlomo Riskin led a thriving congregation in Manhattan. Life was good, but God was tugging him to the land of his forefathers. So in 1983, he and his family moved to Israel, where he became the founding chief rabbi of Efrat, a position he still holds today. Rabbi Riskin is a good friend of Christians United for Israel, and I was honored to sit down with him recently in his office where he shared the fascinating history of Efrat. Take a look. Rabbi, thanks so much for joining us today on The Watchman.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's always great to be with you, Rabbi. And in Efrat, the beautiful community of Efrat, Rabbi, you helped found this community in 1983. You had a successful congregation in New York. You came here to Efrat. What brought you here, first of all, to Israel, and kind of laid the seeds for what became Efrat?
I came here because I realized this is the biblical promise. This is where God is confirming what he promised us. How can I be in New York? Everything is happening in Israel. I was asked to be a scholar in residence in a settlement farm, a kibbutz, which is in Gush Etzion, the area in which Efrat developed. I was giving a class in the Talmud, and a very special person came. His name is Moshe Moshkovitz, and he's like an Elijah the prophet kind of person who has brought many wonderful people to Israel. And he came to my class, and afterwards he said, Rabbi Riskin, what are you doing in America? We need you in Israel. I said, great. That's 3 people who think they need me in Israel. My wife and me and you. But I can't get a job here. Do you have a few minutes, he said to me? I said, yes, I certainly do. He took me to the empty land, absolutely empty land, but magnificently beautiful, verdantly green, wonderful mountains and hills and valleys. And he said to me, look, he said, Moshe Moshkovitz said, I have a dream. I want to see the city of Efrat, where Ruth and Boaz were married to each other, where a young David shepherded his flock. I want this to be the home of a major city in Israel. Bring me at least 200 families, 100 from New York and 100 from South Africa. Let them sign up to come to Efrat. You bring the people, and I will get all the permissions for us to build the city. Started to work. I started an organization called Reshit Geula, the beginning of redemption. Every single sermon I gave, every Sabbath day, I spoke about Efrat. I got 195 families from America and 75 from South Africa. And we started to build. And the rest is history. But now, thank God, we have 13,000 people living here in 9 hills. And it's a magnificent, magnificent success story with many, many schools, including a major rabbinical seminary, that when the realization of the dream is greater than was the dream, then you know that the one who did it was the only one who can do such things.
Only God. Rabbi, so many amazing things are happening here in Efrat, as you described. One of the really great things is the leaders in Efrat, like yourselves, are extending a hand of friendship to your Palestinian neighbors who live surrounding this community. Talk about that a little bit, if you can.
When we got to Efrat, I wanted to be very clear, from 1975 to 1981. 1981 was the laying of the cornerstone. It took those 6 years. I had already gotten my families together. What was taking all of that time was to make sure that there would not be 1 inch of land with an Arab claim. And the first thing I did was invite all of the Mukhtars within the area. And that meant Wadi Nis and Jot HaShama and Wad Rahal and Hebron.
These are the major Palestinian communities surrounding.
That's right. I invited them all to my home. We had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful discussion.
You have been a pioneer in Efrat with Ur Torah Stone and also in Jewish-Christian relations. Now you have the Center for Christian-Jewish Understanding and Cooperation. You've broken new ground there. Our viewers might know you well from the Kufi events, Christians United for Israel events that you've spoken at for years with Pastor Hagee. Rabbi, tell us what that's meant to you to help forge closer relations between Christians and Jews.
That which brings us together is so much more important than that which separates us. And if we work together, perhaps we can even bring the Muslims back to the God of peace and not jihad. And perhaps we can bring a secular world to an understanding of the importance of a God of love.
Rabbi, thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you, Rabbi. God bless you. Folks, God said that he would bring his people back, and that's exactly what's happening. Jews from around the world are returning to their ancient homeland. And up next, we hear the story of one new immigrant to Israel who came from a very unlikely place. You won't want to miss this one. Stick around.
I've just returned from Washington, D.C., where I had the honor of meeting with the President and Vice President of the United States of America. God has given Christians United for Israel unprecedented favor with our national leaders, and I fully expect to see God use CUFI in a supernatural way to protect the state of Israel and the Jewish people in the years to come. We need every CUFI member to come to Washington, D.C. for the summit on July 17th and 18th. This summit is going to be one for the history books. You can register right now for only $75, and our operators are standing by to assist you with making reservations. For Zion's sake, come to Washington, D.C. and help CUFI help the President defend Israel.
Welcome back. Folks, we are witnessing a modern-day miracle. The people of Israel are returning to their ancestral homeland from the 4 corners of the earth. And an organization called Shavei Israel is helping them to do it. We recently sat down with the founder of Shavei Israel, Dr. Michael Freund, to learn how his organization is helping people of Jewish ancestry from all over the world return to Israel. And he was joined by a very special friend. Take a look. Well, Michael Yaakov, welcome to the Watchman Show from Jerusalem.
Thanks.
Jerusalem, the ancestral capital of the Jewish people. And Michael, you do such great work on the ingathering. Shavei Israel, wow, phenomenal work. Talk about what you're doing with this great organization.
Sure. I'm originally from New York. I made Aliyah. I moved to Israel back in 1995. And when Mr. Netanyahu was elected the first time, I went to work for him in the Prime Minister's office. I was the Deputy Communications Director. In the spring of 1997, a small crumpled orange envelope arrived addressed to the Prime Minister from a community in northeastern India known as the Bnei Menashe, the sons of the tribe of Manasseh. It was a very emotive appeal.
One of the lost tribes.
One of the 10 lost tribes of Israel. And it was a very emotional appeal in which they said, our ancestors were exiled 2,700 years ago. We want to come back to Zion. It turned out they'd been writing to Israeli prime ministers since at least Golda Meir in the 1970s, and probably since Ben-Gurion in the founding of the state, but they'd never gotten a response. Something about that letter touched my heart, and I replied to it. And I became involved in helping the community. And in 1999, when Mr. Netanyahu left office, I went and founded Shavei Israel, which means those who return to Israel, with the aim of seeking out the lost tribes of Israel and other hidden Jewish communities and helping them to to come back to our people and our land.
Real quick, Michael, for our viewers at home who may have no idea about who the B'nai Menashe are, tell us a little bit more about this amazing community in India, of all places, how they ended up there and how they came back.
Their ancestors were exiled from the land of Israel by the Assyrian Empire after the death of King Solomon 27 centuries ago. They wandered in an eastward direction, and eventually they settled in what is now northeastern India along the border of Burma and Bangladesh. It was a long journey, but despite the journey, the B'nai Menashe remained faithful to the ways of their ancestors. They never forgot where they came from, and they never forgot where they one day dreamed of returning. We've been blessed over the past 15 years. With God's help, we've brought 3,000 B'nai Menashe on Aliyah to Israel. There are another 7,000 in India waiting to come.
Fulfilling biblical prophecy. Without a doubt, the ingathering of the exiles, the Jewish people were scattered to the ends of the earth. Now they're coming home, never to be uprooted again. Yaakov, you made Aliyah. You came to Israel from India in 2014. Was this always on your heart? Did you always feel tugged to the land of Israel? Was this a lifelong dream for you to come back home?
Yes, this has been in our hearts for years. We have always been longing to return back to the places where our ancestors lived.
Tell us a little bit about your community in India, and you guys kept Jewish customs, Jewish practices. You prayed to the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How was life for you in India before you came to Israel?
Yes, we retain our Jewish consciousness. Our captors, since 2,700 years ago, they have not been successful in diminishing our Jewish identity. So we have been strong enough to keep our Jewishness alive.
Even though you were persecuted at times?
Even though we were persecuted and tortured.
Wow. The Jewish community in India, majority Hindu, Muslim, obviously, in India, and you had this small community, you were tortured, but you retained your Jewishness and your Jewish practices. Michael, this is an amazing story. I can see why this letter that arrived at your office touched you. More and more coming to Israel. This is exciting.
It really is the fulfillment of what God promised our people thousands of years ago. Open up any one of the Hebrew prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Amos, and you will see that God said that at the end of days, Judah and Israel will come back again. Judah being the Jewish people, Jews such as myself, Israel, a reference to the 10 lost tribes.
You're working with communities around the world, right?
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that, too.
We work with, for example, the Chinese Jews of Kaifeng in China, who we've been blessed to bring a number of them on Aliyah, with the hidden Jews of Poland from the Holocaust, the Marranos or the B'nai Anusim of Spain, Portugal, and South America, and various other communities. The Jewish people over the past 2,000 years were persecuted unlike any other. So it's not surprising that we would find remnants or traces of Jews in just about every corner of the globe.
Exciting stuff, and you're on the forefront of it. Thanks so much, my friend.
Thanks.
We appreciate it. Yaakov, thank you too. What an amazing story. We live in Bible times. Well, up next, my final thoughts on the incredible things God is doing in Israel today and how you can be a part of it. Stick around.
It's time to learn the truth about Israel. If you want to know the real story about Israel, then you need to watch Israel Through the Looking Glass, a movie that confronts the accusations against Israel with the reality on the ground. Witness with your own eyes and ears the contrast between Israel's accusers and the true stories you've never heard.
How far away are we now from Gaza?
From this point to the border, less than a mile.
28,000 rockets?
Rocket in 12 years.
Israeli Arabs have the same, by law, civic rights that any other citizen in the state of Israel has.
Call the number on your screen right now or visit the website and order your free DVD of Israel Through the Looking Glass.
This is what your teachers tell you, right? Teachers, yeah?
Israel needs you to know the truth because the truth is our greatest weapon. Find out what you need to know so you can stand up and speak out for Zion's sake. The DVD is absolutely free. Order right now.
And welcome back. The ingathering of the exiles back to Israel is really an unprecedented event in human history. Folks, who ever heard of such a thing? For a people to be driven from their ancestral homeland and scattered to the ends of the earth, only to return 2,000 years later and rebuild their ancient cities and even revive their ancient Hebrew language. Only God could do that. Only the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob could enable Israel to be reestablished and to survive and thrive against all odds. Our team at Christians United for Israel realizes that God's hand is all over this tiny nation. As a follower of Jesus, I want to be a part of what God is doing in the world. What is God up to? Well, as you saw today, God is doing miraculous things in the land of Israel, and you can be a part of it. Join our team here at CUFI and become a partner with America's largest pro-Israel organization. We are 3.5 million members strong and growing every day. You see the info there on your screen, so join us. Join this mighty movement of God for such a time as this. In the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, Moses tells the people of Israel, even if you have been banished to the most distant land under the heavens, from there the Lord your God will gather you and bring you back. He will bring you to the land that belonged to your ancestors, and you will take possession of it. Folks, God keeps His promises. And if you had any doubt, just look at Israel today. Well, thanks for joining us this week on The Watchman. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.